hammering away with this one. Just a normal HB pencil. But I can see some things that need work there. So we'll go back to it. Sketch erase, sketch erase. I think I'll take this one all the way to completion and just ink it too while I'm at it. Colors, I don't know. We'll see. Basically, the headshot in the foreground is a blackout. Usually that's indicated with X's, but I'm just going to fill it in with my pencil. I see a couple of trouble areas here. They're standing out. Let's see if I can touch them up. A little bit in the form. Otherwise, it's pretty much coming along. Nothing special today. Started applying the inks. Started getting carried away because I think I want to save some of those contours for a brush. Maybe not though. I mean, all I'm using there is a fine tip Sharpie so far, and I used a broader pen for some of the deeper blacks. But other than that, we'll just have to wait and see. And there you have it. I think that just about does it. Decided to stop at the inking. Actually, I don't like that. Okay, actually this drawing's at the wrong angle. Let me adjust that a bit. Let's see if we can... Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Now it's head on. Looks like Cap's head was shrunk there a little bit. Just give me a second here. Let me pull that around. So there we go. Yeah, I decided not to go with the brush or even a nib with this. I just kept going on with my Sharpie Ultrafine, which really isn't that ultrafine, and it's quite a bleeder. Plus, as you can see, when I say there it is with all its flaws, I should point a few things out. I don't know why, but just, I don't know. You should note, like, look at this paper, the cheapness and the quality. Actually, that's from a Duotang handout from a job of mine, a workplace handbook years ago. Anyway, yeah, I have plenty of high quality paper and Bristol board and whatnot, but sometimes, you know, I just get doodling and I'll decide. It all depends on what I'm working on, I guess. So again, using the ultrafine Sharpie, it's quite a bleeder, especially on paper such as this. Bleeding like crazy. If you were to get in there close and take a really close look at the lines, you'd see exactly what I meant. There's some trouble areas here, but I decided to just hammer on through them. Now, one of the things I want to point out about one of the observances about my work is that, well, if you were to go through my archives and look at things past and present, some of them only photocopies are left, but you'll see that how do I put this? What you're looking at is actual what you would call freehand drawing. No references and no photos, no previous arts, and no tracings. And that's all well and good. Like, you know, once you get good enough, which I don't believe I am as of yet, without working out a few of my bugs, you can directly from your imagination rough out figures and faces and scenes without references, for the most part. But one of the things I came to realize in the somewhat unorthodox development of my artistic studies is that although I was doing that sort of thing all along, straight from memory, imagination, straight onto the page and stuff, there are some prices you end up paying for that. Okay. Before I get into the prices, I'll just tell you what causes them. First of all, exactly that, going directly from your imagination and a little less looking, right, rather than just rendering. So you're not as observant of things as they really are. And in this case, that would be in, the anatomy would sometimes suffer. Suffer in the sense that you forgot to go and learn to do a certain body type a certain way. So therefore, the anatomy suffers because you haven't learned it yet, but you just drew it this way, that way. The other thing is, where that comes from is from a lack of, you take your art courses either in high school or later on in college, and you do still life drawings and life drawings of actual figures or actual objects with the actual light sources, and it's a full study. I think that's something that most of us, I don't know, I can't speak for others, but that we neglect to do once we get our thing going. And we should always return to those things because we're reminded of things, and the light and forms teach us things. But anyway, yeah, one of the things that often suffers is the way, anatomy is rendered. When you're talking about the figure, when you're talking about the actual figure or human beings. So that's always a price. However, if you find yourself in a situation like that, years later when you realize, hey, wow, there's reasons why this drawing looked a little funny here and there, and this one looked funny and doesn't quite look right, and it's because of those things, because of that lack of study, or as I say, because of that lack of study or lack of patience, that the drawing can suffer a little bit. You just, some flaws are exposed. However, excuse me for a second there, just having trouble keeping that drawing centered. Anyway, yeah, so those are some things to keep in mind. However, as I was getting around to saying, some things have come to my attention recently that really kind of shook me up, in that I wasn't, how can I put this? I was going to say that I wasn't aware of these things, but that's not exactly true. I recently watched some videos where before he had passed away, Neil Adams was talking about the utilization of light boxing and stuff, which is basically tracing items, and him basically making the point that, when you're dealing with advertising or commercial art and comic book art in particular, there's no reason why you shouldn't be utilizing these aids. Why not use that tool, basically? And I couldn't argue with him, but it made me realize that predominantly for most of my artistic development, I was self-taught and learning things without those kind of, I won't call them cheats because I think that would besmear people using the light boxes, but it needs to be understood that these kind of things are used in the comic book industry. Now, I don't have one, But after hearing that, I certainly considered the possibility that these things might be an extra tool most cartoonists would want to use or share. Maybe not so much now with the advent of computers. But anyway, there was that statement Neil Adams was making, plus the one that was a bit more nuts and bolts from Jack Kirby himself, the King, where he was saying that in an interview, I have this interview. Actually, it's on YouTube. It's a segmented series, but anyway, he's basically saying that they asked him about his artistic training, and of course, there were times where he was learning some basics in his youth, but he was explaining the belief he had that people can really do it. But he went on to say that what he meant by that was that you the way you do it is by drawing itself, and I'm paraphrasing. But he was saying if something doesn't quite look right, you just change it and fix it up until it does, until it works. And of course, right? I mean, doesn't that just make sense? Of course, it sounds like, oh, Jack, we don't need you to be telling us that. Well, I don't know about that, because I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for a few. But for myself, I would say this, that a lot of the time in the development, and I still have the drawings to prove it, and there are many that go back decades where I could pull them out and say, I know exactly what's wrong with this. And I could, redo it to fix it. And that would be, I think that would be an education and a good exercise within itself to do. But, so why even say that, Jack? Well, if you look at Jack's work and the way he would make it do its job, so to say, while at the same time, you could sit there and criticize, I don't know, anatomy to a certain degree. But even that is something to look further into. Some things look incorrect, but academically or accurately enough, they are. Anyway, that's a different thing altogether. What I'm saying is, you could tell that when he was creating his figures, he had camera eye and space in mind all the time, sort of thing. So he could twist figures up a bit in different ways. That absolutely worked in Action Comics, though. So if Jack could do that with a style that was a bit more cartoony than I don't even, than what you would call classical or high art. I'm not even comfortable with those words anymore. But the thing is, if he could do that, I think anyone could do that with their own drawings. And I think the biggest thing, and this is also important, is that the artists themselves be honest with themselves when they're looking at their own work. Right? Meaning when you're looking at the work and you see a flaw, if you see a flaw, you better deal with it. Right there. That, while you're doing your pencils. That's what erasers are for. You know what I mean? Don't block it out. Oh, I don't like looking at that. I know it's there, but I don't know. Erase it. Erase it. The rest of your drawing isn't going to fall apart if you erase that particular portion. Always remember that. And these are new things that I'm just learning now, believe it or not. Go back and get rid of it. I want to use a story here to illustrate a point about an artist's honesty with themselves when they look at their own work. first of all, I'm just gonna say it straight out. Get this idea out of your head right now for the best results right now. If you see a flaw in the drawing or in the work, don't tell yourself, well, maybe no one will notice. Oh, I'm just going to leave it alone. Oh, well, it's pretty good. Don't do that. Don't do that. For one, it's always going to drive you crazy knowing it's there. And every time you're showing something, especially in person, right? You're showing something to someone, you're going to be like, ugh. Don't do it. Don't waste your time doing it. Go back and do it until you get it right. Now, if you're hammering away at it and you can't get it right, no matter what you do, then it's at that point that you break your pencils. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's not what you do. What you do is go, why ain't I getting this right? And you go and look for those references in the pose if you can find them later. It depends on the urgency and the importance of the project you're working on. What I'm saying is, there's a reason you don't know how to do this, because you haven't looked at a life figure or the actual object you're trying to strum up out of your memory, which is just dumb. How can you if you don't know it? Go back, look at it, and figure, oh, that's where I'm going wrong. Study the lines, the contours, and that's what you do. Okay? But yeah, never try to, don't waste your time hoping people won't see the flaw that you see. Oh God, they will see it, and especially other artists. They'll boldly reach in their finger and go, "Oh yeah, look at this." They don't, right? Because oh well, that's never mind the reasons. That's a whole different issue. But I'm going to use an example. 2 examples about that. The thing is, here's what you need to get rid of right away if you're trying to get better. If you're saying to yourself, I like what I'm doing, but I'm learning and I want to learn faster and I want people to teach. I don't know how many fields of study, whether you're talking about something as basic as physical fitness and strength training, or zoology, where you're studying certain types of animals, and biology, or in this case art, where I don't know how there always seems to be a major problem. Like, the people seem willing to teach, but they're not. They often don't tell you the fundamentals that you're overlooking. That they either, I don't know, don't feel comfortable rendering those core, I was going to say secrets, but that's not really the word, or they just assume that you gotta know these things due to common sense. But that's not necessarily true when we're in the zone of creativity. We're kind of like out there, and kind of, but they don't tell you things that you really should know. They don't give you the overall, they don't try to promote an overall attitude to the endeavor to which you're approaching. Like, for example, another thing you should do if you're trying to develop, and believe me, I'm still trying to develop, and I see flaws over this drawing, and I will point them out. And I'll also make the excuses in the sense that I knew that I was making a mistake while I was doing it, but it had to do with cheapness of material, and that I didn't want to, I'll get into that. But anyway, one of the other things that you need to get out of is the just like looking for praise and encouragement. Encouragement is important, especially among your peers later on. But that Aunt Sally approach, where I got you some markers and some watercolors. Oh, keep it up, Johnny. That's that's good, but that's not gonna enhance your skill. So when you go online and you put shit out there for the people to praise, you're just looking for, I was going to say something, it's a little bit vulgar, a little bit explicit, but you're looking for a stroke job. Oh, thanks, that means so much to me. Like, stop it. I mean, is that what you want, or do you want to develop as an artist? Okay? Like, this kind of distorted thinking seems to be out there amongst certain communities. I mean, the same kind of people that think you can't read Moby Dick, yet at the same time read comic books for what they're worth, and enjoy both. I mean, just, you start to realize there's personality flaws behind these lacks of development. But I don't want to get into that. That's for doctors and psychologists to deal with. But get rid of that idea while you're trying to get better that you're looking for praise. Here, look at this. Now, when I go to show a portfolio or a new drawing to someone, today it seems I'm looking for action. Like, I'll go and ask, I'll go into certain areas and ask, can you write? Are there any writers around? I want to unburden myself with the idea of writing a comic, which I've done and which I'll probably do again a little bit better because I've done it a little while longer, but I've never done it really commercially or even on the internet. I don't know shit about making videos, but anyway, the thing is, you want to have an impact on them. And actually, what you should feel is this is important. What you should feel is more valuable to you in those goddamn moments is negative input or reactions to the work in front of you and the person you're showing it to. Now, I know how that sounds. That sounds insane. But if you take that negative reaction plus, hopefully, your higher level of honesty with yourself, if they point out these flaws and you know they're real, you better listen. Okay, what kind of asshole would you be if you didn't? Okay? All right? No, listen to that. And if now, there are some criticisms you'll listen to and you realize, oh, this is just a matter of taste. You're not really talking about a flaw here, so I don't have to really take those things into account. But there are different things. When they look at something, they say, this is wrong. See the ankle here, this anatomy's out, this wouldn't be here, the rib cage wouldn't float this way, or whatever the case may be, this eye isn't centered, whatever it may be. If you can see it and they point it out and it's real, take it into account. Stop with the I just want a stroke job when I show you my picture stuff. You're forever going to be a child doing macaroni finger painting that way. So just stop it. Grow up and realize this is not all about feelings, Anyway, I want to leave this with a story on that note. It was a few years back, and, this is a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, met back in high school, actually. And, one of the things about high school is that some of the boys would tend to, be doodling and stuff while they should have been paying attention, whatever. I was definitely one of them, probably more so than anyone in high school at that particular time. That was all I was doing, but I didn't realize that it was all I wanted to really do. Although, it was a lifetime of shitty jobs and some not so shitty jobs in the trades. But the thing was, there was always that enthusiasm there. There was a shared enthusiasm for, for music and bands and comic book books and rock and roll and, horror movies. And this is a Gen X thing. But anyway, as years went by, you know, it becomes clear who decides to continue to pursue the art thing, either as a lifestyle or a career. And others just kind of like drift away from it. They appreciate art and stuff, but they don't themselves do it. Well, one day, I had visited a friend of mine who he and his common-law wife at the time decided to get some canvases and some paint, and they went to work on some paintings and stuff, and they were having a great time, I guess. They got into it for a while, which I thought was really cool. And he had showed me, I'm not going to put it in great detail because I don't want to, center in on this person and make them think I'm insulting them, but there was a flaw there that it demonstrates what I've been trying to expose here as a bad way of thinking. He showed me, let me just put it this way, it was a face that seemed both human and made of steel, and it's actually a logo of a particular band. And the thing is, a lot of it had chrome metal parts on it, with a lot of shimmering or crystal-like shining, like the light ricocheting off something like as you would see with like a chandelier or something like that. Whereas the case is you have a center point of the light itself with the jutting out of streams of light at different points. Usually, it's usually an 8-point. It's like an 8-point star where the edges of the points streak outwards, like X's. And sometimes you'll see that in real life, in the sun, if it's blocked out by the clouds, you'll see as it escapes through, it comes out in that particular pattern. But the job he had done was really good. He got everything right. The form of the thing was perfect. It was flawless. It was the best painting I had seen him do. I don't know if it was. But here was the thing. When it came to the light sources and the glimmering, he took the points of shining and he took into that mind that principle of the shards of light shooting off from different points in thin white lines, and that was all right. But just one of the 3 or 4 shimmering points on the drawing where the light was doing that, he made the mistake of not being consistent and keeping the line parallel to its opposing end on the other center point of the light. Here, I'll show you what I mean very quickly. Okay, so here we go. This is the technique, right? Basically, the center point, the light source where it's hitting the object, is basically blank. And then you shoot off these lines away from that point, giving you the 8-pointed sparkly figure, right? In line art, it's usually done this way, where the lines themselves are black rather than the white. Now, in his painting, he had the light source spot with the black line shooting from it in white. So it was looked like an actual white light sparkle, right? Okay? But here's the problem. Here's what he did on one of them. Give me 1 second. Oops. Okay. So here what you see is an example of making the same mistake. This is what I mean about the lines not being parallel to their opposite on the other side of the light source, if you see what I mean, right? See how one's straight and the other one's off on an angle like that? Well, you know, the thing about that is, you know, these are natural laws, the way light attaches itself and disperses itself, if you will, right? Like you can't change that. There's no argument there. You know, light, there are laws within this physical universe that we try to render as artists. They don't change. It's not a debate. It's not a matter of taste. Like, you know, oh, this is a matter of tasting. No, this is a matter of the way things are. So, the problem with something like this, like when you'd see that on the drawing or on the painting that he had made, which was so well done, up until those little spots. Well, those little spots threw off the viewer's eye. It was standing out like a sore thumb. And I said to him basically, oh, you got to watch this here. You should remove this line and then straighten it out to make it, you know, conducive with the other light source and make it, you know, right. And, you know, well, you know, here's the thing about this kind of thing. Him not really being much of a, you know, an artist per se, in the sense that it was something he was studying to do. He came up with this painting that came out so flawless. And I was quite impressed by it, by the way it looked. It was good because he got the form perfect, like I said. Well, he must have been doubly, overwhelmingly impressed with it, and it was probably one of the better things that he had done, like I had mentioned. And so he wasn't taking any criticism. How dare I, right? And he was basically like, well, I don't want the light to go that way. And I didn't know how to answer that. And I'm thinking, well, the light source is... You don't have, you know... You can't... You choose it, and then you make it, you know, behave that way all over the drawing. It's not like, you know, you don't have a separate light source, do you? No. No, you just basically have some sparkles on some chrome here, and they're all going to be uniform, but you've decided to go with this because, I don't know. I felt like saying, it looks like you took a shit here, like you weren't paying attention, and your hand went one way or something happened. I go, but now I think, when I look back, did he see it? And it was just, you know, did he make it an issue? Like, you know, was it a different issue for him? Well, a real friend wouldn't point that out. Or something like that. It's like, no, stupid. It's not that. Like, you want me to lie to you? Right? And tell you how great it is and how great you are, and, you know, don't say anything negative? I say, do I got a pair of tits on me? I'm not going to do that. If you're gaining weight, I'm going to tell you you got a fat ass, okay? Look, my point is that he, you know, the guy who did it, he just didn't want to hear it. He was upset about it. And both times when he showed me, no, wait a minute, it was 3 times he showed me it. And it's usually after a long space and time when I haven't seen him, because that's basically what our relationship became as buds, right? We catch up. And at the time we'd have a few beers or whatever, shoot the shit and listen to music, reminisce a bit. And, you know, and he'd, oh, by the way, and he'd bring out the painting. And he'd sometimes forget that he had already shown me and what my reaction was. He must have. There are reasons for that. Like, he's not mentally ill, but he, you know, has a loose elbow sometimes. Tips the bottle a bit. And, you know, and, you know, since the teen days, and, you know, these things are a matter of, for many, even grown men today, they are a matter of arrested development. They just don't even know about these emotional frailties within themselves and their weird fears and whatever. This isn't an AA meeting, but anyway, so he'd bring it out and he'd get the same reaction, but the reaction from him was always the same, and he didn't even, it's like he didn't even acknowledge that I had already told him, yeah, it's perfect. You just have to fix this one thing. And it's easy to fix too. But he's so offended. Don't be that way. Be honest with yourself. And I wonder today, did he actually see it? He just didn't want to hear it. Don't be that way. Enough of this stuff. People kissing your ass, telling you, oh, that's cover worthy. Oh, and you pat your chest like, oh, thanks, bro. Like, do you want reality? Do you want to learn, or you're looking for a stroke job? Enough! What I'm saying is, we don't have to be rude, but going around bullshitting each other just to make everyone feel better it's for the birds, okay? It is just enough. This field of interest is just like any other discipline, any other trade, any other profession where, you're either going to dedicate to it and learn to get better, or you're not. As I say, I'm still learning, right? And on that note, just to prove you that I'm not just talking out of my own ass, I'll point out some of the flaws here. Oh God, I've got bundles of stuff like this. I'm still going to use it. But this is just comic book line art. They're not like my oil paintings or whatever, right? It's a different medium altogether. But, when you lay down ink, you're laying down ink. And unless you're going to get the white out and then start scanning the black and white after you've applied white out and repaired, I'm not doing that. Not with this, okay? There's no need to. But, yeah, some flaws. I would say, first of all, around Marv's nose here, there's some work that needs to be done with a balance between the lobes around the nostril. I would also say I don't really like the way this upper arm came in, but it's I think it's a struggle here where, as I was penciling it in, I wasn't realizing, oh wait, this is going to be a foreshortened shot. And I don't think intuitively while I was doing it, I was making that conscious decision. I was just throwing it in there. And later on I just applied it and I said, yeah, it still works, but it's, it's not exactly where I'd like to have it. And then there's a matter of, I didn't really think through the gloves when it came to shading them in. They're black, so this portion of Marv's costume, as well as his gloves here, are basically a black with dark blue highlights. That's traditionally been the method used. I'm thinking of 70s, okay? That's my niche. 70s comic book art. That's where I'm at. Basic, pencils, inked, no computer enhancement. You got the skills, or get the fuck out of here, whatever. That's what I've been trying to push for. But anyway, I didn't take the time to really think about how I wanted to shade these things. It works, but it's not where I'd like them to be. I didn't look at hands in these positions from any reference or anything, so, and anatomically it could be more flawed than I know. I guess I would have to go back and check or whatever. But you can still visually make it work. The other thing I wasn't happy with, let's see, is along this portion of Cap's neck in the second figure here. But this was something different. Here's where I make an excuse. This was something different because the marker I had used on the edge, the Sharpie, oh God, it bled right to the edge of the neck. There was no crack shadow, and I thought, well, later you could go and tickle it with some white out on the edge, and then I thought, yeah, but you can't really color it directly when you do that. You'd have to scan out your inked drawing, and you're not going to be doing that with this, so the hell with it, let it go. And that's what I did. Other than that, let's see, admittedly, the hairstyle I was going for was this swooping action to one side, Whoa, there we go. It's a common pattern of a hairstyle that you've probably seen. But I'm not really concerned with that. So I just winged it and then tried to keep it uniform there. And it works every single shot. It seems like it's the same head, the same hairdo. So that's pretty good. Yeah, there's a couple of other things that not really worth mentioning. But you can see but as for perfection, when you're talking about comic book line art, forget it. I mean, why bother? I mean, you can do that with anyway. You should do it within yourself when you're making the creation, but not so much to the degree that you're trying to achieve perfection on a canvas. That's a little bit different. Yeah, so there are some flaws there, but I think there are some basic ideas that I've shared that would and should help. And just to summarize, the artist has to be honest with themselves when they see flaws in the work as they're creating it, and to tackle them then and there. Don't try and brush it away with yourself or later with others, like maybe they won't notice. At that stage in penciling, you have an eraser there. You can change everything and anything, so don't worry about it. Now, the other thing was that when those flaws or mistakes are pointed out to you, try and gauge whether or not these are a matter of the person's taste in art or actual flaws that they identify that you can see. And again, that attaches to the other part of the mentality where you are honest with yourself. Honest enough to look at it and go, oh yeah, they're right. You got to work on that. And the other thing was that if you're hammering away at a certain point and it just won't work, despite your tweaking and manipulating and trying to get it right, there's a reason for that. You got to go back and study that position on a figure and look for references and figure out why you're not getting it. And usually what happens when you do that, you'll see it as immediate as, like, you'll look at it and you go, oh, of course, that's why the rounding here of the shoulder, it has to fit in behind the side of the arm like so, and this portion is attached to, what I mean, anatomically, or even without much detail, like just looking at a photo, you can see within the foreshortening where the flaws lay. Well, anyway, I just hope those things will help, and you'll probably see these images in later on in my portion of the, I guess you'd call it the established Marvel universe, where we're looking at the various characters without alternative universes and all that. It's kind of old school, looking back into the archives that were preserved by the custodians of the Marvel Universe, various publications, from the mid-'80s and later in 2008, and after that in 2014 in the encyclopedias, different Marvel Universe indexes, perused and brought together, and portions read to bring out the actual characters. And I'm going to be doing one on Captain Marvel, and I'll probably use this in that, along with the other references that I do find. And this, of course, is Marvel, Mar-Vell, first name Mar, second name Vell, which the world would come to know as Captain Mar-Vell. Well, this is one of the powers he acquires a little bit later on, before his origin, a little bit later on, after his origin with the military, with the Kree military as a captain. And it is his ability to achieve cosmic awareness. Cosmic awareness. So that thing across his face is actually like the universe and a consciousness and awareness. When you see that, he's engaging or searching for information or a person or some sort of... I think you get the picture. So that's what that is. Well, Thanks for stopping by and let me exploit my cheesy drawing here. And I hope some of the points that were made were helpful. Bye for now.